Hello, my loves. If you are new here, my name is Ruby. I am a professional psychic medium, an archetypal astrologer, a priestess, and a lover of all things tarot and oracle deck related. And a couple of you very kindly reached out to me and asked me to get my butt back on YouTube and to make some more tarot content. So I'm going to be sharing the decks that I have been working with over the last couple months, this past fall 2024, and maybe also share a little bit of a life update. And I have the books that I have been reading for my spiritual path on this table as well. So maybe I'll talk about those too, just so that there's some new information here, because I'm going to be quite honest with you, all of the decks that I'm working with are decks I have probably talked about on this channel before. I think one of the ways I'm struggling in terms of some of my content being tarot and oracle related on the YouTube space is that I don't know if I consume tarot and oracle decks to the extent that most other creators on this platform are consuming and purchasing new decks. It's not really my style. I really like to have a relationship with every deck in my collection, and I don't purchase a new deck unless I'm feeling called to do so. And I revisit the decks in my collection a lot. And I think that a lot of the decks in my collection have so much wisdom that I could be working with them for the rest of my life and still be gleaning new insight. And so I'm reticent to really consume and purchase just for the sake of it and just for the sake of having YouTube content. Especially I go through seasons. I feel like there's seasons where I purchase a lot of new decks, and there's seasons where I just marinate in the tarot and oracle decks that I already have. So I'm very much in a season of marinating, and I've been using tarot and oracle less in my personal life than I normally do. I've been using it, same in my professional life, and this is going to be more of a personal deck collection I've been working with personally. I'm not really going to bring in professional decks. Just that's not how I'm feeling inspired today. But personally, I've been in a lot of transition. Over the summer, I was really maxed out doing professional reading work. And that was really where all of my energy was going. And I had to set some boundaries and pare down my hours that I'm available professionally, just to come back into a little bit of balance. So I was in a little bit of a burnout space, and then traveled extensively throughout the month of September, and then over October had some really big life transitions, and I moved. So as you can see, I am in a new space. This is my first time recording a YouTube video in my new office. It's very much still in process. So we have some empty shelves, but all of my tarot and oracle decks are unboxed, which is really great. But for a little while, I just had what I, hadn't packed. So this list is going to be reflective of that. It's not very Samhain or seasonally oriented, with maybe the exception of one deck, okay? So I recently changed my daily draw for tarot and oracle. So first I'm going to show you what I was using for daily draws, and then I'm going to show you what I'm currently using. So my last daily draw, tarot and oracle deck, and then my current daily tarot and oracle deck. So what I was using for daily draws over July, August into September was the Mysteries of Mary tarot deck. The creator of this deck is named Hettian Grobler. I just want to make sure that I'm getting that right. I have the guidebook in here, I believe. Should have pulled that out before I started filming. Yes, Hettian Grobler. This is the guidebook that comes with this deck. This is an indie deck. This is an investment deck. This is a deck that I sat on for several years before purchasing, and definitely think it was a worthwhile investment. Definitely plan on investing on the investing in the other decks that this creator has put out into the world. And I don't think this deck is for everyone. I think that this deck is for people that are really connected into Mother Mary energy, very connected into the true connected into the true esoteric teachings of Christ. It's been a while since I've talked and displayed card imagery, and apparently I'm out of practice. So the pluses of this deck: beautiful imagery, beautiful artwork, definitely not your regular standard tarot deck, even though it is based off of the original structure and system of tarot. So it has a major arcana, it has 4 minor arcana suits, but the suits are original in their names. And I feel this is very much more of a mystery school. Both of the tarot decks that I'm using for my daily draws on this list, I think, fall into the category of really being more than a tool for divination, being a system for spiritual learning and development and enlightenment. And this deck is really esoteric. It is very dense. It is very much within one particular wisdom stream, and it is a wisdom bearer. So I was using this deck to connect in with the energy of Christ consciousness and the energy of Mother Mary and the energy of the goddess Sophia. Now, what I think is more difficult about this deck is the size. Very large cards, very like heavy deck. This is definitely something that I wouldn't shuffle with. Like I would shuffle your standard like Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I think that this would be a frustrating size if I was using it for a divinatory reading. The only way I've ever used this deck is a daily draw and then reading from the guidebook and having it on my altar. So this deck lived on my altar in my old space, and now it's living right here in my new space, in my new office. And I've taken a break from working with it, but I was working with it for a while in conjunction with the Kali Oracle by Alana Fairchild. So I am a huge fan of all of the Alana Fairchild decks. The ones that I use the most are the Kali Oracle, the Isis Oracle, and I love the last edition of the Lightworker Oracle, which you can see on my bookshelf. And this deck really got me through August, September, and October. I really did not stray really far off the path of using this deck every day. I didn't utilize a whole lot of other Oracle decks just for my own personal devotional time. So I was using other Oracle decks in collective readings and professional readings, but when it came to my own personal spiritual practice, it was pretty much for a big chunk of time just the Kali Oracle. And to me, this deck is a direct line to Kali wisdom. It is full of really potent energetic practices. It's really unique. I don't think there are too many other decks like this on the market in terms of the ability to connect in with the deity and the ability to really have that direct telephone line to the deity. I would say that the Isis Oracle and the Mother Mary Oracle by Alana Fairchild have that same ability. I think the Oracle of the Hecatean Path, while I don't like the artwork as much, has that same direct telephone line to deity. I don't know of any other decks where it's really carrying the essence of that deity. I don't think that any of the Mary Magdalene decks I have, while I like them, one is on this list, really carry the vibration of the deity the way that this deck does. And I have used the journal in conjunction with this deck several times. You guys are probably like sick of me talking about this deck. I'm sure it's shown up on lots of other videos, but I'm just gonna be honest. Like this is what I'm actually working with right now. It's not like really sexy or titillating for those of you that have watched a lot of my other tarot content, but it's what I was using. And to me, Mother Kali and Mother Mary are two sides of the same coin. I find them to be Mother of the Universe energy. And I find Kali to be very misunderstood. I think that Kali is a wildly benevolent and full of grace, full of love energy. And I think she gets sometimes demonized or fear-mongered. And her imagery is quite frightening. And I don't think she's an energy that we ought to come to lightly, because there is a bit of ferocity there. But within Kali's cosmology, she has several different emanations. She has emanations that are more benign and benevolent, and then she has emanations that are more fierce and frightening. So Kali is very multifaceted, and she is going to show up for us in the way that we need her. And sometimes we need her to come and bring severance. And I think the energy of the collective at the time that I'm filming this, early November, we are deep in a very potent and activating Scorpio season, is the energy of severance. So I think that this deck is really aligned with a lot of what we are moving through collectively. And Kali is in my corner always. I have such a love and affinity for Mother Kali energy. Okay, moving on to just other decks that I lied. Let's talk about the current tarot and oracle draws I'm doing now, that I'm using now, and then we will move into the other decks that I've been using. Okay, so the daily draw that I recently moved to using every day, when I put aside the Mysteries of Mary, this deck really came forward, and it is the Mary L Tarot. And similarly to the Mysteries of Mary Tarot, this deck is a mystery school. It is very esoteric. It is very spiritually rich and deep, and at a much more affordable price point than the Mysteries of Mary Tarot, and also pulls from many different wisdom traditions. So it's not so specific in where it is drawing its spiritual and esoteric wisdom. So I have such a deep love and reverence for this deck. It is one of my favorite tarot decks of all time. It really gets to the root of the highest emanation of all of these cards. So tarot as a system is multivalent and multidimensional. It is multivalent in that it has many different qualities. We see these archetypes exist on different planes: the unconscious plane, the conscious plane, the dysregulated plane, the regulated plane, the spiritual plane, and the mundane plane. So it's multivalent, and it's multidimensional. There's a multitude of qualities to every single one of these cards. And what I love about the Mary L, I don't know if you can see the card that well with my current lighting setup, but I'm doing my best. What I love about the Mary L is that it is, and when I say this, I don't mean it's like the highest light, but it's like the highest, deepest spiritual frequency. of each of these tarot archetypes. And so if you really want to understand these archetypes as living, breathing, spiritual systems and energies that we can call on, I really encourage you to work with this deck. For example, the Eight of Pentacles, the Eight of Discs is typically a card we associate with work, right? And look at this imagery. It's biblical. And so if you're used to interpreting tarot from a more mundane, divinatory point of view, there's nudity in this deck. It's a little freaky, it's a little weird. I'm obsessed with it. I really think this gives you the ability to open up to the system of tarot, which is a living system, in a way that goes beyond the mundane, in a way that goes beyond just divinatory meanings. And I've been using this as a daily draw in conjunction with reading from the guidebook, which is a beautiful guidebook, a deep guidebook, one of my favorite tarot guidebooks. And I do use this in bigger spreads as well. And I do read it intuitively at this point because I have a lot of familiarity with the structure of this deck. I've worked with it for several years now. But I just have such a love affair with the Marielle, and it's a deck that I return to at least yearly for daily draws, and I'm getting a lot out of it. Again, I think this deck is really apt and potent for Scorpio season. We're talking about the archetype of Scorpio. We're talking about going deep, 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 uncovering the hidden, uncovering the dormant potential. And that's really aligned with the energy of this deck. Okay, Oracle deck I just moved into using as I set aside the Kali Oracle, which we'll see how long that's set aside, is the Queen Mab Oracle. I've talked about this deck before. I love this deck. I love this deck because I love the wisdom within this deck. I think it was channeled by the deck creator, Tess Whitehurst. I don't, how do I say this? I like the artwork. It's not like something I'm deeply obsessed with, but I enjoy it. And it's definitely, I think, well suited to the divinatory meanings. I think it's a very cohesive deck. And I started using this deck because I was feeling really called to it. The past couple of days, I couldn't get out of my head. Like the Queen Mab Oracle, the Queen Mab Oracle, the Queen Mab Oracle. I was like, why can't I stop thinking about this deck? This morning, I pulled yet another daily draw from it that was so aligned with what I'm currently moving through in my life. I was like, okay, this is the deck that I need to be working on right now, or working with right now as I work on myself. Because I've definitely been mining my own shadow material in a way that has not been super comfortable for me. The way the transits are lighting up my personal natal chart is like brutal. I'm experiencing some astrological brutality for my highest good. And this is a really good deck to work with if you are in more of a phase of shadow mining, of getting in touch with your shadow in conjunction with divine feminine wisdom. And I do find this deck to be very gentle. And really aligned with maybe the asteroid Black Moon Lilith in terms of the content and the places in your psyche that it's going to be speaking to and activating. So that's the Queen Mab Oracle. Dark feminine energy, both the Kali Oracle and the Queen Mab Oracle. So I'm definitely in more of a dark feminine phase, but both really unique decks. I encourage you to have both of them in your collection if you are using Oracle with the guidebook for self-growth and self evolution. work. They're both really, really, really good. Okay, let's move on to just the other decks that I have been working with over the past couple months. This isn't an exhaustive list, and again, I'm talking more about personal work over professional work, but I will let you know if I use these decks professionally. First on the list is the Mary Magdalene Oracle by Megan Watterson. There is not a Mary Magdalene deck on the market yet where I'm like, this is my holy grail, this is my ride or die, like the Kali Oracle. But I enjoy different Mary Magdalene decks that I have. My two favorites are the Mysteries of Mary Tara, which are up there, hanging out with Yeshua. And then what I've really been using, mostly personally, but I've been using this deck as well with my mentorship students and for collective readings on the Patreon, is the Mary Magdalene Oracle by Megan Watterson. Now, how this deck is going to be unique in terms of the wisdom that it offers is that it is really sticking to the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and the spiritual and esoteric teachings found in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And so if you are looking to broaden your understanding of the teachings found in the Gospel of Mary, Megan Watterson is a very accessible teacher. I find that the way that she writes and the way that she explains things, it is not overly cerebral or difficult to glean wisdom from. It's very accessible. It's very easy to understand, and I really enjoy the concepts and the spiritual teachings found in this deck, even though it's not my favorite artwork in the slightest. Okay, I might do a series that's like decks I love despite the artwork. And this would be on the list. Not that all of it is bad, but I think there's some unnecessary like collage style art that I find a little tacky. I'm sorry, my moon is in the 6th house. I don't mean to be overly critical. I'm just highly selective and I like what I like. And this deck is a deck that I enjoy and I work with quite a bit, despite the fact that, again, some of the collage style art I find a little overly busy. And this is a deck that I will also use a lot if I am looking at the astrology transits and I want to know, okay, what can I tell them meeting my Patreon members, or if I'm like filming for social media, okay, what can I tell them to help them resource themselves? Like if I'm looking at a more difficult transit in my own life or like a world transit, we'll do a little bit of a guided practice. Because this deck is so connected to a spiritual wisdom stream that I, feel really connected to and I feel is my path, like, the Mary Magdalene wisdom stream is, Mary Magdalene's my patroness. She's my primary guide. I feel like it's my work in the world to spread those teachings. And so I'll ask, okay, what can I tell them, them being whoever I'm reading for, to help, guide and resource them, or what's the medicine around a particular transit. And so freedom, I'm called here to be free. So right now we're currently in a time astrologically where Pluto is in the final degree of Capricorn. It's a death degree. It's about to move into Aquarius for the final time. It's been opposing Mars. A couple of weeks ago, we had it in a grand cross with Sun and Chiron. And so collectively, we are facing all of the ways that we are not free, in which we try to control ourselves, in which we try to control other people, in which we're under systems of control. All right, that's Pluto and Capricorn, these systems of control. And so, what is the medicine? We're here to find more freedom. We're here to learn what freedom is. So that's how I use this deck in my own life and in my, professional work. And I don't think that Megan Watterson's decks are perfect, and I don't love the layout, but I use both of Megan Watterson's decks all the time. And so the frequency is aligned for me, even if I don't think that they're perfect. All right, next deck on the list is the Tarot of the Huntress. This is an indie deck. You can find it on Etsy. The creator's name is either Kara or Kara Small. I believe that she's Forest Moon Maiden on Instagram and like Chthonic Forest on Etsy, but it's been a while since I purchased this deck, so I could be getting that wrong. I am not really connected with the energy of Artemis. This is an Artemis-based deck, but I am really connected to this deck. I love both of the decks I have from this deck creator. I will probably purchase every deck she puts out. I like the backings. This is my favorite cardstock, which is like more of this quilted mat. I just find it very easy to shuffle with, and I find it holds up well to my heavy-handed shuffling. And I love how this deck reads. I've been using it when I go and read. I read at a shop once a week. I read at Magic Fairy Candles in Longmont, Colorado. I love that shop. I will never let that gig go. My life has really aligned that it is most suited for me to read virtually and really expand my offerings that way. But I love Magic Fairy Candles so much. I love serving the community in that way. It's like, I never really fully let go. And so I've been bringing this deck into Magic Fairy Candles and using it for clients, and I just love it. It's such a seamless read. And to me, this deck is all about sovereignty, coming into a place of empowerment, coming into a place of being free, like that Mary Magdalene Oracle card we pulled from. It's all about feeling free, feeling untethered from chains of the past, or chains of codependency, or chains of obligation. And it's just gorgeous. It's so gorgeous and numinous and special. Okay, so that's Tarot of the Huntress, and I've been using it for spreads for myself too. Like the other tarot decks I showed you, they were meant to daily draws and read the guidebook for me and how I'm currently using them. And this is more of if I want divinatory answers, I will pull this one out. And then the next deck on this list is the Oracle of the Hecatean Path. I've done a review on this deck before. I use this deck to connect with Hecate. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like this is one of those decks that's just a direct line to the deity. I don't really like the artwork. It's just not my personal preference. It's a little Photoshoppy, and it's just not my personal taste. It belongs with the Mary Magdalene Oracle in decks I love despite the artwork. And I do love this deck, and I use it all the time, and I use it for myself, and I use it for shadow work, and I use it for divinatory readings, and I use it for collective readings on the Patreon, and I use it for ritual work. And this is a deck I use for so many things, and it's so special to me. And it's funny because I think it's interesting that I have such a close connection with Hecate, because Hecate to me is like such like a goth witch like archetype. And I'm such a fairy, and I feel like so many of the archetypes I work with kind of like match so much more with my aesthetic. I'm not really a goth girl at all, but Hecate and I always find each other again. And she's not a deity that I work with all of the time, but whenever I work with her, I get the most fruit. Like out of every deity that I work with, when I work with Hecate, she's very Saturnian for me. I have to show up, I have to do the work, I have to look at myself, and then I get like these big rewards from it. And I've been really feeling called to spend a lot of time with Hecate again as we move through the end of 2024. I will sometimes build an altar just for her. I think I'm gonna do that within the next week. So this deck is just gonna be something I utilize even more. And then the last deck on this list is probably the one I've talked about the least on this channel. And it is the only deck that I feel like is really Samhain related. Like this, I guess there's like a dark feminine theme running through these decks. But this is the only one where I feel like it's like really bang on Samhain. And it is the Beloved Dead, an Oracle for Divining Ancestral Wisdom by Carrie Paris and Tina Hart. This is a deck you can definitely just purchase on Amazon. It's a mass market deck. I don't really use the guidebook with this deck, even though it has quite a nice guidebook. I use this deck for channeling in a mediumship way. So I started really using this deck maybe like a month and a half ago, and it's one of those oracle decks that I find is not the most exciting and highly usable, because it is one of those decks that has very simple divinatory meanings. And it's a deck that you can read without a tarot deck, right? You can use it more like a Lenormand maybe, where it's like its own system that you can use for readings on its own. And that might be actually a really useful way to use this deck if you're a beginner to card work and divination through cards, because you don't have to memorize the Rider-Waite. And this deck, when I am channeling, souls that have passed on, when I am channeling loved ones that have passed away, this deck is scary. It is so clear in a way that just kind of makes you turn cold, because you're like, oh, I'm really talking to something here. And I've done some really effective mediumship sessions with this deck, and I think it's really helpful to have some oracle decks in your collection that are almost foolproof, in the sense that you can't mess up the meaning. In fact, let's just do a little pull with this deck so you know what I mean. And you don't have to use this deck just for, channeling ancestors or loved ones that have passed on. I think you can use this deck to talk to your guides. You can use this deck to connect to, I think, any other energy you're trying to talk to, just to do protection, please, if you're connecting in that way. But, just messages from your guides, even really foolproof answers. Okay, so what does the YouTube community need to know right now? Okay, so we have visitation, sovereign, an act of love, objectivity. So I think this is really speaking to the collective energy. And right now we are going to be visited with all of the lessons that we need to really learn what sovereignty is in our life, and really learn what it is to be the designer of our own life. Because that's what sovereignty is, right? Our past programs aren't running the show. Our conditioning isn't running the show. Expectations aren't running the show. Our epigenetics aren't running the show. Our unconscious isn't running the show. We, as self with a capital S, are in the driver's seat running the show. So when things come up for you the next couple weeks, right, when you are visited by experiences and phenomena the past couple weeks, You're not being punished if it's more challenging. You are being given the material that you need to be more sovereign in your life. So just see how easy it is to interpret this? It's crystal clear. It's easy. So that is The Beloved Dead by Carrie Paris and Tina Hart. Really no frills, great oracle that you can use instead of a tarot deck or in conjunction with a tarot deck for channeling really clear messages. That would also be a good, like, let's draw one oracle card for clarification. What is the theme of this tarot draw that I just did? Okay, I told you that I would share the books that I'm currently reading, and so I'm going to do that, even though this is getting a little longer than I thought it would. So we'll try to move through these quickly. The first that I'm going through very slowly is called In Praise of the Goddess, the Devi Mahanmaya, and its meaning. This is a translation of a spiritual classic written 16 centuries ago to the goddess. It tells the story of the divine feminine in her form as Durga. It is a text that is essential to the Hindu tradition and to Hindu goddess worship. And there are verses in here that are chanted to invoke the goddess. So if you are going to use this text to invoke the goddess, be very mindful and thoughtful in how you do that, because you will get results. And again, I'm working through this very slowly. My Sanskrit pronunciation is garbage. It's always been garbage. And it's something that I'm working on. And so I'm working through this very slowly and reverently and methodically and getting a lot out of it. And chant portions of it in my daily spiritual practice. So that is In Praise of the Goddess. And then next we have Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, The Inner Dimensions of the Birth Chart by Stephen Arroyo. I'm rereading this. I read it several years ago at the beginning of my astrology journey. I just felt called to revisit it. And when I first started my astrology journey in classic 9th house, 3rd house fashion, I had stelliums in both of those houses. I just devoured as much as I could. I became a professional astrologer quicker than I recommend that you go about that. That was just my own personal journey. And I just consumed so much astrological information in a 2-year period. And so naturally, some of it has fallen out of my brain. Or it's like I remember the essence of it, but revisiting it again with the maturity I now have with, I'm sure I've done hundreds of professional astrology readings, if not more than that. This has really been a treat to revisit. And if you are on a path of trying to learn more, discover more about astrology, particularly in what does my chart have to say about what I'm here to do, like as a soul, and what I'm to evolve as, and what I'm evolving, into as a soul. This is a really good one. And then the last book on the list is also one that I'm revisiting. I love this book. This is The Law of Light by Lars Muehl. This book goes into the true esoteric teachings of Jesus Christ, Yeshua, through the lens of the original Aramaic. Now, Aramaic is a very sacred language, similar to Sanskrit. Every word carries spiritual technology. It is very rich. It has a multitude of meaning, and it's lost. The true teachings of Jesus have really been lost within the distortion of mainstream dogmatic religion. And so if you're interested in learning the true teachings from the original Aramaic, this is a great starting point. And I think I have a list on my TikTok where I really go into all of my book recommendations. If we're talking about the true teachings of Christ, you can find that list there, and this is on that list as well. So that, I believe, is it for our time together. If you sat with me this long, thank you. It was great to hang out with you. And if you have deck recommendations for me, decks you want me to purchase, leave them in the comments. As you can tell, it's been a while since I brought anything new into my collection. And if there's a video you want me to make, I'm feeling a lot more settled into my new space and ready to take on more YouTube content, and really feeling called to actually make more content for particularly this platform. The long form content feels like it's really aligned with my energy. So leave that in the comments as well. If you want more regular content from me, I have a Patreon you can join. I post at least twice a week, 30+ minute videos where we really unpack the astrology of the week and the weekly reading, and we talk about goddesses and archetypes, and we do guided practices. And I'm there on that platform to really support your spiritual becoming and your own spiritual journey. And of course, you can always book a one-on-one reading with me as well. So as always, I am sending you love, I'm wishing you well, and I will see you soon.